All that time spent developing your signature style of artwork, and one simple photography choice could be undermining it all. So let's talk about it. Hey friends, I'm Rebecca, professional photographer and hobby potter. If you've been following along with this behind the scenes series, then you know that I've been photographing these Donovan pottery mugs with these new mid-fire speedball glazes, both of which are brand new to me. And in fact, the speedball glazes are brand new, period. So you should go check them out. But anyway, to photograph all of these, I've been using nothing but my dining room table and a window light. Now today in part 3, I'm going to show you a quick and simple change that could make creating the vibe you're looking for dramatically easier. We're going to photograph these exact same mugs in the exact same lighting on the exact same dining room table, but this time I'm switching from a warm backdrop to a cool backdrop. Now, if you've never heard of color referred to as warm or cold, don't worry, I'm going to explain that. But first, since this is part 3 of the series, if you've missed out on the setup from part 1, don't worry about it. You can download the explanation of the foundational setup by clicking the link to my free product photography foundations guide in the description below this video. So let's get into it. Here's what happened. After filming parts 1 and 2 on that warm backdrop, I kept thinking about what I had actually mentioned just off the cuff as I was photographing about color theory in part 2. I was photographing that really deep blue mug and said that it might look better on a cool gray background because the color was also cool. Well, that random statement that I made while I was photographing just stuck in my head and I couldn't let it go. So I did what any obsessive type A person would do. I photographed every single mug all over again on my gray backdrop. And as you can see in this footage, I used the exact same setup, same lighting, same dining room table, literally everything stayed the same. The only variable that changed was the background color. And I think you're going to be really surprised how much that one simple change shifted the entire vibe of the photos. But before we get to all of that, I want to explain something really important about both of these backgrounds that you might not otherwise notice. While they may seem totally different, there's actually one very important thing they have in common. Both of these are what I call mid-tone colors. In other words, the warm background isn't a bright white and the gray background isn't completely black. They're both sitting right in the middle range of the color that they are. And this is absolutely intentional. In fact, this is the one thing that is going to immediately make photographing your work so much easier, especially if you're using a cell phone camera. Let me repeat that in case you are only half listening. Using a mid-tone color background is the one thing that will make photographing your work immediately easier, even if you're just using a cell phone. Why? Because your camera will always think that gray is equal to a correct photo. And I mean any camera, because this is literally what they're built to do. I also don't mean gray as a color. I mean gray as a value. So if you're using any camera on auto, whether it be your cell phone or a regular camera, if you're in auto, your camera is built to think that gray is correct. It's trying to make your entire photo look even. It cannot tell the difference between a pot that is the subject of your picture and a background. It doesn't know one is more important than the other. It sees everything in front of itself as being the same. When you use extreme colors like pure white or deep black backgrounds, your camera sees that filling up the frame in front of it and tries to make it even, which means that white is going to become gray and the black is going to get lightened up to become gray, which also means in turn that your pottery ends up looking weird because the camera is overcompensating for the background, not realizing what it's doing to your artwork, which is the actual subject of the picture, right? So when you start using a mid-tone background, you're just making it easy on your camera. Your camera doesn't have to fight against anything, and the color of your pieces, like your glazes, will magically look more accurate. But it's not magic. It's taking control of your camera, but that's a conversation for another video. So let's get back to talking about color theory. Why did switching the background colors change the vibe of the photo so much? Now, I mentioned earlier warm colors versus cool colors. So the short explanation of what those mean is that warm colors have yellow, orange, and red undertones, like beige from the backdrop in parts 1 and 2 of this series. And cool colors have blue and green and sometimes purple undertones, like the gray backdrop that we're comparing in this video. Now, color theory is a little bit more complex than all of that, but for the sake of brevity in this video, that's enough to get you started. If you're feeling ready to dig deeper on that subject, then you definitely want to check out my Maker's Photography Styling System course, because we have an entire module devoted just to the subject of color theory. But you can get more info on that in the description below. So remember, when it comes to these backgrounds, I have clearly not done any additional styling to these pictures. There are no props in these photos yet, which often are the things that help create a vibe. The only thing that has changed is the color of the background, right? Well, one thing I hear all the time, especially from potters, but other art mediums as well, is how much you struggle to get accurate colors in your pictures. Well, that blue mug that I mentioned might look better on gray. On the cool background, you can see that the hints of green come through so much easier when it's photographed on gray than when it was photographed on the warm background. But here's where it gets interesting. That tricky to photograph green glaze, it's shape-shifting in the pictures. Now, this glaze is complex in real life, so it doesn't surprise me that it changed so much in the photos. Because on the warm yellow background, its yellow undertones are brought out. But on the cool background, the blue side of this glaze shows up more. Now, I'm curious, are you surprised by how much the vibe of these simple photos changed just from switching the backgrounds? Let me know in the comments, because here's the thing. There are a ton of photography tricks like this, and I want you to notice this has nothing to do with what kind of camera or cell phone you're using. We're talking about making practical, quick, and easy changes for as little cost as a quick trip to the hardware store. So please do me a favor. Stop buying $1,000 phones or $3,000 cameras, continuing to shoot on auto, expecting different results. Okay? Maybe let's try the cheap solutions first and see where we go. But I digress. Yet another subject for yet another video. If you're interested in me talking more about equipment, then also let me know in the comments. All right, getting back to it. The key takeaway here is to remember that there's no universally best background color. It depends entirely on what you're photographing and the mood you're trying to create. Concepts like color theory exist to guide us, but what you choose to do with them depends on your own personal aesthetic. It's not exactly a 1 + 1 = 2 type scenario the way learning how to shoot in manual is. That's exactly why we go into way more depth on color theory in the Maker's Photography Styling System. Speaking of, I want to show you these examples from past students because they have used color theory to create dramatically different vibes. Now remember, they're all taking the same class, we're talking about the same concepts, but depending on what each of them are going for their own aesthetic, you can have cohesion and a harmonious look, while other students are embracing bold contrast to make their work pop out. It just depends on the vibe you want. Now, if you're just starting out, you can test what mid-tone colors work best for your specific work without investing a bunch into a permanent backdrop. Just go to your local hardware store and grab a tiny can of sample paint. Buy a board that's maybe about 2 by 2 feet. That's the smallest size I would think would work, at least for most functional pottery, and paint it a warm mid-tone color. Test out photographing your work on that warm tone. And then paint the other side of the board a cool tone. And remember, cool tones have blue and green kind of lurking underneath the surface. photograph the exact same piece on the cool backdrop. Which vibe do you like more? As I discussed in the Maker's Photography Styling System, things like color theory are a tool in your tool belt. There's lots of options. You get to choose which tool at any given time you want to use to suit your needs. Both of these photos are technically good photos. They are properly exposed. You can see the shape of the mug without any distortion. The photo succeeds at showcasing a mug. But if we want to sell our work online, what do we want people to feel when they think about our work? Give this a try with your own work and tell me in the comments what you discover, because you just might be surprised. And of course, don't forget to first download my product photography foundation guide from the link in the description. It's free, because getting these 2 different background colors set up in the first place with the right angle of light to the window, if you're photographing at home, to get your glaze surfaces looking correct in the first place, well, that's all going to be crucial to this test. So download the guide now. I have plenty more videos I'm working on full of tips for photographing your art specifically, whether you use a cell phone or a regular camera. So be sure you've liked this video and, of course, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on a new one. Coming up next, I'm going to be talking about the photos we used for our most popular listing that's ranked #1 on Etsy for over 2 years now. So you've hit that subscribe button, right? Great. Until next time, my friends, go get back to making your dreams a reality, because together, we've got this.